Now, this gets into the absolute favorite part of my business, and we have a Circle of Champions success story interview. Let's get the gentleman back on the line, Mr. Terrance Slade. Terrance, are you there?
I'm here.
Well, welcome, Terrance. And hey, we were just here 2 weeks ago, weren't we?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And it's been an eventful 2 weeks for one Mr. Terrance Slade in Atlanta, Georgia.
Absolutely.
And so what we're going to do is, for those of you that were here 2 weeks ago, you know the story. I'm going to call this the rest of the story. If you weren't here 2 weeks ago, then Terrance, what I'd like to do, I'm going to, when we get into the interview process, I'm going to ask you some questions going back to the start of this deal, if that's okay with you. Would that be okay?
Sure, that's fine.
I want, for anybody that's the first time they've heard your story, I want them to understand the whole story. So, all right, so just like, I'll get my pointer working here. All right, so there he is, Mr. Terrance Slade, young, good-looking guy right there, lives in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm calling this part 2 of the story, and or the rest of the story. Like I said, we interviewed weeks ago when he had, at that time, become a new Circle of Champion member doing his first multifamily deal. He bought a fourplex, a vacant, boarded-up fourplex in Atlanta, Georgia. Paid $8,000 for this building. He used basically the peas in a pod strategy. This was a fourplex. It's in a pod of 8 fourplexes with just a few owners across those 8 buildings. Bought that property for $8,000. And when we spoke to Terrance, and when we celebrated that purchase, we celebrated him getting his first deal done. And at that time, Terrance had that property under contract to sell for $225,000. Now he paid $8,000. Paid $8,000, and yeah, this is big profit, real big profit. It's about big money. And under contract for $225,000. Drum roll. He closed just last week. Sold that same property for $225,000. Congratulations, Terrance.
I appreciate it. Thanks.
You must still be on cloud 9.
Yeah, feeling pretty good about that property right now.
All you have to do is replicate them, and there's the money. There's a copy of the settlement statement that Terrance sent to me. You see, cash to seller, net $216,406 and change. You see the right there on row 601. There's his sales price, $225,000. Didn't have to give you on the sales price. Netted, walked away with $216,000. First multifamily deal. So we'll be talking to Terrance about this deal, and Terrance, again, because we have people that may not know your story, would, for the benefit of everyone listening, would you just mind kind of sharing again your background, what prompted you to get started with apartments and real estate, and how long you've been involved, and what training have you received?
Well, for the most part, yeah, I've been in real estate for many years. Actually, got involved with pretty much simply flipping properties, flipping single-family homes, and went through, with anybody that's been in real estate, we realized we went through that downturn there around 2008 when everything just kind of fell apart. And I kind of realized at that very moment that, when everyone had talked about passive income, I actually now began to understand what that really meant, because at that point I realized I had no money coming in over those several years of that downturn, and I realized that if I had something that was, some rental properties that would have been paying me would have been great during that stretch, but didn't have that. So kind of made that my goal coming into, as things started to come out, that I wanted to definitely get into some rental properties, and and got a hold of your program and figured I'd come out and kind of get more educated on it, because that wasn't part of what I had known about before. So I figured I'd come out to your course and definitely get educated on it.
And you came out to Charlotte to the live event as I recall, correct?
That's correct.
All right, and so there's his background, which is, common, and with regards to kind of what I hear with people making the decision to get started with apartments. By the way, if you're interested, there's the property, there's the fourplex, and if I recall from before, Terrance, yours is the one on the right there, the one with all the white plywood across it. Is that yours?
That's it.
So that's the property he purchased for $8,000 and then ended up selling for $225,000 in the span of just a few months. But let me get ahead of myself. So going into this deal, Terrance, so I know everybody wants to know, beginning, how did you find the property? What was the situation with it? What did you see as the opportunity, and how did you go about pursuing it?
Well, definitely was a property where we kind of used some software through RealQuest to kind of just to locate multi-family properties, in kind of a pocket area that we were looking to specialize in. So we kind of started marketing to some of those properties through direct mail, and also got around and started driving some of these properties to kind of see what some of these conditions were, and to kind of determine which ones we wanted to really put our interest in. And we drove this one, and we saw this one, and we figured, a bunch of abandoned buildings. We figured we can get in probably pretty cheap. It was in a very good area. I don't really understand why it was vacant, but it was in a very good area, and we figured we could get in pretty cheap. Figured we'd get in. Actually, our plan was to get in and just, we thought we'd get in and renovate and turn them into rentals for us, and just turned out that it was a little more than we expected when we got into it. It was, a lot of different owners, but once we realized there were several different owners, we kind of went in with that, like I said, that peas in the pod strategy, where we thought, well, we could either go in and hopefully acquire all of them, or B, attack the smaller properties from and try to get those under contract, and then flip those to the guy who owned most of the properties. And so that was kind of our strategy when we kind of went in, and just so happened that didn't quite work out either. Through negotiations, apparently he didn't want to pay our asking price. We didn't really want to pay his asking price, so we found another guy to come in to pay both of our asking price, and took it off of both of our hands.
Well, now let me relay that to everyone. That's, we teach peas in a pod, for 2 to 4 unit properties, and this one you had 8 buildings out there, correct, Terrance?
Correct. Yes.
8 buildings and 3 owners. You had one owner that owned 6 buildings, and one owner that owned 1, and a third one that owned the other one. Is that right?
Yes.
So Terrance was very smart. He approached it, and he was going to get one of the properties tied up under contract and then sell it to the big owner, but he couldn't come to agreement on that. So they ended up, as I know the story, you bought it for $8,000, and said, how was the negotiation with the seller? Well, you actually bought this on the back taxes, correct?
That's correct. Mm-hmm.
So he was able to buy the property by just basically buying the taxes, the tax lien, and got title to this property, all for the grand sum of $8,000. So that's how he came to own the property. So let's talk about this part. So you did not sell it to the owner who had the 6 units. You found a different buyer. So share the story. This is where it gets really interesting. How did you find your buyer? What was your sales price? We know that was $225,000. And how was the negotiation? How did this all play out to where you took a property that you paid $8,000 and got $225,000 for?
Well, in this particular instance, we began to market to different builders that we kind of already kind of knew that these were kind of builders that were in this particular area, and we kind of knew that these builders were building in this area, and we approached that builder, and that was a long process in itself, but we began negotiating with that builder, and we offered up the property to him because we figured that, well, the land might be worth more to him than obviously than the buildings were, and turned out that we were correct, where he decided to, he would come in and he's going to ultimately knock down all these buildings here, and he's going to redevelop it into townhomes. And we realized that because it was already the zoning was already in place where it made sense for the density for the most part. So because it was already zoned essentially multi-family, then it allowed for townhomes to be put in that same area. So now instead of building single family homes, it makes sense where he's going to probably end up building somewhere in the neighborhood of probably 30 to 35 townhomes right here.
Sweet. So you found a developer, a builder who's really valued it based on land value, and is going to scrape these fourplexes and put up new townhomes. So to talk about the process? He didn't buy your fourplex by itself. Tell him about what you had to do to make it a package for him.
Yeah, so essentially, we kind of knew that the only thing that made sense for him to take down, instead of, he wasn't just going to buy our one single building. We kind of figured that we needed to get all the other builders all the other owners on, essentially to work with us, because it was a situation where the guy who owned most of the properties, he wanted too much for his, but he also didn't think ours was worth the same price, so he wasn't going to buy our property for the same price he wanted to sell his for. So we just kind of said, you know what, well, obviously instead of us kind of butting heads here, we have a buyer that's willing to take down the entire project for us, if you're willing to kind of come in and kind of, joint venture with us on it. And he was like, well, if the numbers work out. And we ultimately end up negotiating a total takedown. I think the total takedown was like 1.6 million on the entire takedown. And just so happened that our little piece, our little fourplex building there, was worth $225,000 of it.
Well, I like your math, because let's see, 1.6 million divided by 8 is 200,000. But when the dust settles, you got 225. So I like your math, Terrance. That works good. That works good. With your entire
absolutely
together, you made it happen for those other two owners.
Oh yeah, that makes it. It was a long, arduous process, and just a lot of back and forth. I mean, to be honest with you, we thought we easily had a deal. To be honest with you, we thought we easily had a deal with the guy who owned the other 6. We just figured it naturally would be a situation that he would just buy us out. Now, again, the funny thing was he wanted us to buy his properties for $200,000, and we said, well, that's too much. But how about, since you feel like it's worth $200,000, and go ahead and buy our property for $200,000? And he immediately rejected that offer. Somehow his buildings were worth $200,000, but ours wasn't. But luckily we found a third party that thought both of our buildings were worth $200,000, and so it worked out.
So basically, you executed what we teach, to dominate and profit. When it comes to these pods, when you have a distress pod, and this is the definition of super distress, but you brought together what no one owner could do by themselves. You consolidated and brought together the owners for basically an exit they couldn't see on their own. I mean, you did a fabulous job, man. Great job.
Thank you.
So all right. So you got this $200,000 in your pocket, burning a hole, or it's in your bank account, and so you've got this big win on here, your first small apartment deal. So what's next for your business, Terrance?
Well, unfortunately, what that doesn't show, but one of the line items that is on that HUD is a fee to an intermediary. Basically, for those that don't understand what that is, it's a person that handles a 1031 exchange for you, and there's a line item fee of about $850 there for him to kind of come in and work out his magic for us. And so what we decided to do to avoid taking a huge tax hit was we actually 1031 about $150,000 of it.
And so you want to, and you're going to use that as down payment on a bigger cash flowing property, correct?
Exactly. Yeah, that is our intent for right now. So we got about 45 days to find something else to put that in.
Great. That's smart. That's really, really smart. You took 8,000, parlayed it into 225, and you're going to take some of that and 1031 exchange it. Which, for those of you not aware, that means he can take the 150,000 portion of it. He pays no tax on that, and you can use the full 150,000 as down payment on a passive income property, which was, as you recall, that was Terrance's objective getting started. I mean, it's classic, textbook. All right, Terrance. So you had the first deal. First, you bought the one for 8,000. I asked you questions back then when you did that. Now you've sold it for 225,000. Got way into six figures on your first deal. So, you know, with people that are listening that are maybe to do their first deal or considering getting started, looking back at this process, what is the single most important thing you learned in this process that you would share?
I mean, I would tell anybody to, you know, be honest with you, just stick with it. I mean, you know, because this was not, obviously, it was not an easy deal to put together by any stretch of the imagination. And I mean, it was a lot of back and forth, and honestly, a couple of times where we thought the deal had actually died. I mean, you know, and it was just, you know, we thought that it was pretty much over, and it was literally several back and forths. I mean, even once we even bought the builder in, there were several back and forths just in the whole process. And I mean, it was, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I think that we earned every bit of that $200,000. It was definitely earned. And so I tell anybody to stick with it, you know, and when one door short, keep going after it and find another avenue to get to the same goal. So I mean, you know, as they always say, there's definitely more than one way to skin a cat. Just keep going after it, you know.
You know, that is very wise advice, because I hear this over and over. It's been my experience personally. It's the experience I hear every time I do one of these, and what I call it persistence. And you, the one, it was you that made the deal happen. Without you, it could have fallen apart a dozen times, I imagine. Correct?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they would still be 8 abandoned buildings there right now.
Yeah. So you're right. You earned that fee. You did what was 8 blighted buildings going nowhere with owners that didn't know what to do with it, were doing nothing with it, and gave them an exit that they wouldn't have known about, profited for yourself, and it's because you put the deal together and you made it happen, which is the key part. I mean, I'm just so proud of you, so excited for you. Congratulations, Terrance.
Thank you so much.